Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back to another Sims 4 video on my channel. I'm Luke and today we are building a haunted manor on the Straud mansion lot right here in Forgotten Hollow, which is, to be honest, not the greatest world, and to be honest, it's kind of a pity because I like Forgotten Hollow, but they did it so dirty. We only have 4 lots here and they're all mid-sized. And I feel like there's so much wasted potential, like with Moonwood Mill, which was also kind of underwhelming in my opinion. But I don't want to talk about Moonwood Mill anymore because it was so disappointing for me. I know a lot of you like it, but they could have done more. I like the objects that come with it, but the world is pretty boring. Anyway, let me tell you a bit more about today's build. As I said before, we're building a haunted mansion here in Forgotten Hollow on the Straud Mansion lot, which is, I think, the biggest lot. And to be honest, at first I wasn't sure what I wanted to build here because I wanted to build something with ghosts, but I also wanted to build something Victorian. And this house is basically the result of this. I even got a new pack for it, even though it's just a kit. Namely the Castle Estate kit, which is really good in my opinion. I used all the windows, I used the doors. I used some of the wall patterns. The wall pattern, there's only one. I used the flooring that came with it, I used the trim. And initially I wanted to use the wall pattern for the exterior as well, but it was a bit too massive. And I decided to go with brick because it was a bit more fitting for the build in my opinion, which we'll see in a second. Anyway, as I said before, the Castle Estate kit is really good. You can see the massive brick here, which comes with the kit, which I initially wanted to use, and I think it looks fine here, but I wanted to use something less massive, and I feel like it was the right choice to use this brick here from Get Famous, which looks pretty good in my opinion. So initially I was hoping to get an EA partnership because I applied a few months back, but I never got an answer, and I think the channel is just not big enough and we don't get enough views here to get sponsored yet, which is just too bad because at the moment they're really putting on a lot of great packs which I would like to get rather sooner than later, and early access would be great. I feel like this is a good point to ask you to like and subscribe. So as you guys can see, I initially wanted to use both types of brick, the more massive one from Castle Estate and the more delicate one from Get Famous. But as I said before, I then decided to use only the red one, which I think looks a bit better. So as you can probably guess, the interior is an awful mess again because I was trying to figure out the exterior first, which usually doesn't end well, but it's just the way I built. And I feel like this house has a very weird layout, which you will see towards the end of the video. So here's another thing that comes with Castle Estate, these windows here, but also the fences, which I used outside and inside, at least the first one you can see here. And I feel like the best part about this pack are the windows because they just look amazing. I've never seen windows like these, which was also one of the reasons why I've actually bought this kit. So for some reason I also wanted to have a clock tower here, and to build this I simply scaled up one of the wall-mounted clocks and simply put it in a tower here. I'm not sure how much sense this actually makes because I'm not sure if a private residence would have some kind of clock tower. But with this build, it was more about making it look good rather than making it look realistic. But I have to say, I almost scrapped the whole build because basically at this point, I wasn't really satisfied with how it looked and I was about to start over. But then I said, no, this has potential. And even though this was quite nerve-wracking for some reason to finish, I'm pretty glad I did because I really liked the end result here. And I hope you like it too. I was just going into full-on perfectionism mode. For some reason, I wanted this build to be perfect. And the question here is, how do you make a build perfect that's supposed to be derelict, destroyed, and uninhabited? Which is also the reason why it was so hard for me to build this, because I always had Vampire Mansion in mind the whole time. And I was like, no, it's a haunted manor, so we are going for ghosts, not vampires. But whenever I tried to furnish a room, it was like, oh, this looks very vampire-esque, I would say, and so I ended up adding debris, boarding up the windows, and for some reason I was like, I don't like this, there's not enough debris, but then I was like, now there's too much debris. I also wasn't sure if this house was supposed to be used by regular Sims, and to be honest, this is not playtested because I'm pretty sure most of the objects here are functional, but it's far from fully functional because the kitchen is basically completely overgrown and destroyed, so I decided to not build a functional kitchen here just for flavor. But most of the house should be usable in some way. And if you want to use this house for ghosts, to be honest, I don't know how ghosts work. I never looked into the mechanics of ghosts in the game. If you know, let me know in the comments below. Do ghosts behave like regular Sims? Can they float over stuff that's on the ground? Can they interact with all the objects? I'm not sure what ghosts can actually do in the game. Also, if you want to, I didn't create any ghosts for this build. Going to cast, if you want to create a gang of really wild ghosts that live here, that would be awesome. I would really appreciate if you guys could do that and upload it to, I don't know, Reddit, tag me somewhere, or upload your ghosts to the gallery and let me know in the comments below that you did so. Or we could use a hashtag. Okay, hashtag is dbresidents for the gallery so I can find your ghosts or even some other inhabitants for some of my builds, because to be honest, I didn't create any Sims in a long time because I was just focusing on building. But I'm really excited to see a ghost, so because I had no idea who would live here, what type of ghost. I always had vampire in mind for some reason, because I think it's because I used the furniture from vampires mostly here. And this room, which you can see here, is actually the library or some kind of office area or like a second living room, because the actual living room is on the first floor and this is the second floor. I'm not sure why I started here, but I think I wanted to build the library first. So as I said before, this house is not playtested, so I'm not sure what actually works here. I tried to build in a way where things would be usable. And we have 2 bedrooms, which are kind of small in my opinion, which are on the opposite side of this room here, so they're also on the second floor. And I didn't put too much objects in there, but there are beds in there, so technically if you wanted Sims to live here, they could. I think this house is more suitable for like a vampire or maybe a werewolf. Also, maybe a spellcaster who lives here with ghosts. So, as I said before, it would be really interesting to see your suggestions for inhabitants here. Maybe there's some humans in this household living together with the ghosts, or it's just occult sims, or just ghosts, whatever you can come up with. I think this could be fun for you guys as well. I'm really curious if somebody does this, so I will check out everything that you guys upload. Maybe even do a short video, if enough people upload something. So as I said before, on this side we have the bedrooms. It's 2 bedrooms here, which are actually quite small. I wanted them to be a bit bigger, but I couldn't add any additional space, so this is what we have here. Also, another thing I was thinking about was like renovating this lot could be fun for some of you. I'm not sure if you would be into that, but I think it could be really interesting for you if you wanted to renovate a house like this one here, which is not completely destroyed, but it's of course very old-fashioned, and it would be interesting to see what you guys would do with a house like this one here. Would you keep it more traditional, or would you add like some modern elements as well, some modern furniture of course, and you would of course make it a bit lighter, because I feel like at the moment it's pretty dark even though we have so many windows here. So this area here is the living room area. At first we had one big room on the first floor here, until I decided to divide it into 3 areas. We have the living room area here with a very nice fireplace. We have the dining room area and the kitchen behind it, so technically it's 4 areas, even though the kitchen is not usable. And then we have the hallway in the middle here, which is just for representative purposes, I would say. So for the furniture, I used mainly the stuff from vampires just because I think it's more fitting. I would really appreciate having furniture in this aesthetic here, which is a bit more destroyed, because initially I wanted to buy basement treasures as well, but I feel like the furniture wouldn't fit the aesthetic of this build because it's a bit more formal looking. I would appreciate furniture in the style of vampires, but a bit more banged up, a bit more character, I would say. And I didn't want to use any CC because CC is always kind of problematic because people have to download it. There's viruses on several sites, there are problematic creators, and I feel like using what you have in the game is also kind of a challenge for some people, even though I used a lot of packs for this one, which I'm aware not everybody has, but I wanted to build with basically everything that I have. So at this point I was adding the kitchen area here because I wanted to have a kitchen, but it kind of looked odd to add it to the dining area here, so I extended the house to the back side. And now we have a very nice small rooftop patio here, which actually leads to one of the living quarters upstairs, so it's connected to one of the bedrooms here. And as I said before, I'm not completely satisfied with the layout here because I feel like I wasted so much space, for example, for this very big hallway here, which doesn't do much. And we have the library upstairs, or the second living room, and we have a living room on the first floor here, and then we have this really big dining area. But the bedrooms are very small, and I actually wanted to add a nursery as well, which I didn't do because, first of all, I didn't have enough space, and second of all, I wanted to use the new nursery kit, but I didn't buy it because I think I won't use it much, and so I decided against building a nursery, even though it would be pretty spooky, I would say, to have like a haunted nursery in a house like this one. So at this point, the kitchen was pretty much usable, but I decided to get rid of one of the walls here, and later on I added so much plants to the kitchen area, so it was pretty much completely overgrown. So you can't even walk in there. It's not usable, so I wouldn't classify this build as functional because we don't have a kitchen. And I'm not even sure if every object in here works. So at first I only wanted to use stone flooring and brick walls, but it was kind of unrealistic and also not very interesting. And I'm very glad that we have this wallpaper here from Cottage Living, which looks a bit faded. I really like it. I never use it, or almost never use it. At least I can't remember if I ever used it in one of my regular builds because it looks a bit more faded, and even though I like it, it's not very fitting for what I usually build, so I'm pretty glad that I could use it here. I also wanted to use some debug here from, I think this is from Get Famous movie set, but I decided against it because it was just taking up space, and I'm pretty sure it would render even more objects unusable in here. But what I wanted to add was a greenhouse, so we have a greenhouse here on the right hand side, as you can see. And I was looking for windows for a long time, so I decided to cut out that portion of the video because it was not really interesting and also not really relevant for anything. And I ended up using the Greenhouse Haven windows here, even though again they look a bit too new in my opinion. I would have preferred something that would be a bit more banged up. Some broken glass would be perfect, but again, I didn't want to use any custom content, so this is what we have here. I used some of the wall decorations which look a bit greasy and smeary from, I'm not sure what it's from, I think vampires, or there's one from Strangerville which I used a lot, and I used them to kind of give the windows a more dirty look because at the moment they're a bit too clean in my opinion. So once again, the layout here is an absolute catastrophe because I didn't plan anything here. I just built the house and I wanted it to look good from the exterior, mostly because it was my priority to make it functional because it's a haunted manor, and I was like, this will be cluttered to the brim. To be honest, there's a lot less clutter in here than I thought there would be. And as I said before as well, I try to go lightly on the debris and the destruction here because at least when it seems to be able to move around here, and I kind of playtested the house later on, and most of the rooms are at least maneuverable, so your Sims can actually move in here. There's some exceptions to this. So the kitchen is not usable, they can enter it, but it's not usable, and they can't enter any of the bathrooms, which we'll see in a second. But most objects in the library and the living room are usable. Same goes for the bedrooms. But if you really wanted to play with this house, you would probably have to remove some of the stuff lying around. As I said before, there's not too much. For example, some wooden planks, some rocks lying around. Maybe some of the plants are also interfering, but it's usually quite obvious what's causing the problem. So if you remove, for example, a rock that's lying around somewhere or some debris, your Sims will be able to move around here. So another thing that I added later on in the build process was the basement, which is basically some kind of dungeon with a secret room for, again, a vampire for some reason. So we can pretend that this used to be a vampire's residence, but they left or died or still live here together with the ghost, whatever the story you're playing is. Anyway, I added a secret room in the basement for the vampire to sleep in, so they've got their coffin there. But as I said before, it's also a dungeon, so I wanted this to be a bit macabre, and so we have some additional rooms, which you will see towards the end of the video. So one thing I really like about the Vampires pack are these angel or fairy statues here. I'm not sure what they're actually supposed to represent, but I really like how they look, and they are just nice to use here. But another thing that comes with the Vampires pack, which I do not really understand why it was included, is the werewolf statue, which is a wall-mounted statue. I think I used it here on the inside at some point, but I'm not really sure why it was included in a vampire pack. Because to my knowledge, vampires and werewolves are natural enemies, so I'm not really sure why a vampire would want a wall-mounted werewolf statue, but it's included in the pack and we take it. Also guys, if you're not sure which occult pack to get, I would probably say vampires is the best one. It always depends on what you're actually trying to build, of course. So if you want to build haunted manors, mansions, Victorian builds, I would recommend vampires, of course. But if you're going for the more shabby aesthetic, I would definitely recommend werewolves. And if you're more interested in the gameplay, it obviously depends if you want to play vampires or werewolves. So if you have to decide for just one of the packs, make sure to check out the content first. If you're more interested in Ghost, you obviously want to buy the new Life or Death pack, which I don't have at the moment. I really wanted to use it for this build here, but as I said before, unfortunately I'm no partner, I'm not sponsored, so I couldn't get it in time. I think it was released on Halloween this year, which was also the date I wanted to release this build here, but I encountered some problems which I wanted to fix first because I don't like to upload unfinished builds, mediocre builds, or usually builds that are not play tested. As I said before, this one here is not play tested, but usually I try to make sure that my builds are also functional because I want you guys to be able to use them in your game if you want to. Anyway, I'm pretty sure that I will get the new pack soon because there are some objects included that I really want to have. There are, for example, holes in the roof which you can place, and I think they don't look too good, but we don't have anything that's comparable at the moment, so I want these. And then there are some windows which look really interesting. And I think what I'm most excited for are the holes in the walls because we have some exposed brick there which you can put on regular walls, which looks really good in my opinion. So you can, for example, put it on a regular wall, concrete wall or anything. It would just look like the plaster is chipping and flaking off, which looks really cool in my opinion. At the moment we have a similar one. I think it's included in the werewolves pack, which is for wallpapers, and it looks like it's detaching. It's like ripped wallpaper detaching itself from the wall. And it's basically limited to wallpapers because it looks like wallpaper, and you can't really use it for brick walls or for concrete walls or for anything else like wooden siding because it doesn't make sense. It's not realistic, and so I'm really glad that they included more wall decorations like these, especially with the pack like Life and Death, which is about decay and also life, of course. But I think a lot of people are really fascinated with like destruction, decay, and stuff like that. You see that a lot with all those lost places shows and also dark tourism, if you want to call it like that, where people visit abandoned or mostly abandoned places. Like for example, the surrounding area of Chernobyl, where not many people live anymore, and they get a thrill out of like finding places that are especially radioactive by using a Geiger counter, which I personally wouldn't really want to do, to be honest. I also don't like getting scared, which has changed a bit over the years because now I can watch horror movies and actually enjoy them as long as I'm not completely alone, so I don't like watching them on my own. But it's fun to get scared together, and I think the same goes for like people going to ghost houses or abandoned houses to look for ghosts or other supernatural occurrences. Because I get it, it's fun to do so, but not if you're alone. Don't get me wrong here, I like thrilling shows on TV, also about the supernatural, like Supernatural, which had 5 really good seasons, but then it kind of fell off for me. But as I said before, I don't like watching full-on horror movies, at least not on my own. And usually these movies are only scary as long as you don't see the thing that you're supposed to be scared of, because once they show it, it's over for me. It's not scary anymore. They just look ridiculous most of the time, and I think this is also what most people enjoy, not knowing what's lurking there for you. And the same goes for ghost houses like this one, of course. So as I said before, we also have a basement where we do not only have a secret room for like a vampire, basically for a vampire, because there's a coffin there down there, and I'm also not sure if regular sims can actually sleep in a coffin. To be honest, I never tried that, so if you want to, let me know in the comments below. Asking for a lot of comments today. Do it for the algorithm. I'm a ghost. I'm sorry guys, but please leave a comment below. So another thing I really like using for this build here are the water stains. I think they are also from Strangerville, I'm not sure. And these can be found in the rock section, so basically everything that's a decoration that goes in the ground is basically considered a rug for some reason. I mean, I'm not mad because this allows me to find all the stuff very very easily. And to be honest, I don't really get the distinction they made between like pictures and wall decorations. I mean, I get that one contains paintings and photographs and stuff like that. The other one is like different objects you can basically wall mount, but I'm not sure why, for example, the cracks in the wall are included in paintings. But this way I can at least remember where I can find them. And as I said before, it's not much of an issue, it's just curious in my opinion. So this is our greenhouse here, and one thing I really miss in the game is having broken windows. Like full on broken glass, maybe even destroyed frames. And as I said before, I used some of these wall decorations here, which can be found in paintings, to give the windows a bit more of a greasy look, because they just look too new, too fresh in my opinion. And I also used a lot of these ivy climbing trellises that come with the high school years expansion, which is also a great pack, which I use all the time for different types of builds, for example this one here. So the greenhouse is not really usable for anything, just like the rest of the house, because there's so many plants in there. Even added more plants later on, and your sims can enter the room, but they can't do much in here, so it's basically just for looks, and you can't really use it for anything. And again, if you want to use this house in your game, you can of course remove some of the objects that are blocking the way. It's usually pretty obvious what's blocking the way. So here you can see the second floor from a bird's eye view, and as you can see, the two bedrooms are really small. These rooms should be functional because I playtested them, because I only had Vlad on the lot, and as a vampire he can't sleep in beds, so I couldn't really figure out if the beds are functional for sleeping, but he could sit on them. So I think it shouldn't be an issue, and the bed should be functional in case you want to use human sims in here. But if you want to play with vampires, you can use the coffin in the basement, of course, which is in the hidden room. But if you want to play with vampires, you can simply remove the beds and add coffins for them to sleep in, or put the coffins in a different room, of course. So one thing I want to mention concerning the Castle Estate pack is that it came with, I think, 3 types of doors, but they're all pretty big, and I didn't want to use, or I couldn't use the big doors for every room, especially if it's just a one tile gap between like 2 columns or something like that, which we'll see later on when we build the basement. And it would have been great if they also added a regular door. Maybe I didn't see it, but I'm pretty sure that there's no regular door included in the Castle Estate pack, which kind of makes sense because it's about castles, but I would argue that castles also have some regular doors inside, and not only those huge gates like I used here for the entrance area. Don't get me wrong, I like the doors that are 2 tiles wide, like this one here to the greenhouse or to the bedrooms, but I feel like it wouldn't be too much to ask, or too much effort to include a slimmer door, which basically is this door here but slimmer. And I know I'm basically complaining about a non-issue here, but I still wanted to mention it, even though, as said before, the Castle Estate pack is really a good kid, and I really wish I would have gotten it earlier because it would have been really useful for certain types of builds. But I wasn't sure about it for some reason, and I haven't bought any packs in a long time now, so this one is the first one after like a year. And as I said before, I will get the Life or Death pack pretty soon because I like a lot of the objects in there, maybe as soon as it's on sale. Anyway, the Castle Estate pack also comes in handy because I got a request for a very small castle, and I think I'm gonna use a lot of the things from this pack here. I will try to build a micro castle, so a tier 1 micro home if possible. So the goal here is to make it as small as possible while still maintaining the castle look, which can be a bit problematic because for a castle you basically need towers, and towers take up tiles, and I tried to build a micro castle before. I never finished it. It's one of my unfinished builds. I think it turned out alright, but I think it's more realistic to go for a tiny castle, which is a tier 2 tiny home, which is a bit bigger. A bit bigger is an understatement. It's basically double the size, so we get 64 tiles in total, which we can use up for the whole build, which I think is a bit more realistic than actually building a micro castle where we only get 32 tiles, which is not that much. I don't really want to build a tier 3 home because then we get 100 tiles, and I feel like 100 tiles is not really a challenge anymore, but we'll see. So another thing I wanted to mention are the tombstones here, because I wasn't sure why I was adding tombstones here. It was like, I said to myself, it's Halloween, we're gonna make it super spooky. Also, it's about ghosts, so we need tombstones, even though it does make a lot of sense, because if this was a residential house, why would you have a graveyard in your front lawn? So it doesn't really make a lot of sense. But then I remembered that the Straud mansion also has tombstones outside, and they come with the vampires pack. Some of them come with werewolves, and I think they're included in another pack as well. Possibly Realm of Magic, I'm not sure about that. Anyway, I want to use the tombstones because I think they look really good outside, even though it doesn't make a lot of sense, as I said before. By the way, the lights you see here, the saucer lights, which are not really fitting for this build, are just for lighting purposes, so you guys can see more and I can see more, because building in super dark rooms is not fun for me, and also not for you, because you can't see much. So I decided to add the saucer lights, which I usually do with darker builds like this one, where I build not during nighttime. This is actually afternoon lighting that you see here. But Forgotten Hollow is basically just a super dark, gloomy, misty world, so you actually can't see much even during daytime. I mean, it's fine outside, as you can see, but inside it gets dark really soon, even if you have a lot of windows like we do have here. And later on I removed the saucer lights because obviously they don't fit the build, and then I added lots and lots and lots of wall mounted and regular candles and chandeliers, and I cut out that portion because it wasn't really important for you guys to see, and it would have added like 2 extra minutes to this video, which is already quite long, so I decided against it. So here I'm working on the basement I mentioned before, and as you can see, I'm building the secret room here with a vampire quote-unquote bedroom. And I use bookshelves here to cover this area so that our secret bookshelf door doesn't stand out too much. Even though having lots of books in it, I would say very moist basement, doesn't make a lot of sense, but here they are. Maybe the owner doesn't care too much about the books, so they simply store them in the dungeon. Again, this build is one of my less realistic builds, but again, as I said before, I was going for looks, not really realism here. So as you can see, I placed a coffin here, which is of course from vampires, because it's, to my knowledge, the only place a vampire can sleep. And here's a door that leads basically to nowhere, because I wanted to add additional rooms here, but I couldn't do so because for some reason the game won't let you connect rooms on different levels, even though they're on a completely different story. So we have the living room on the first floor here, which is like one platform level lower than the hallway. And this is not an issue if you're building like on the second story, but if you want to place a basement, you basically have to have rooms on the same level above it, or otherwise you can't connect them at all. So I had to raise the level of the living room, which deleted a lot of objects because I couldn't use any of my mods. So I couldn't use delete protection here because there was an update and Twisted Max's mods didn't work anymore. So I had to wait for their update to the update, because as you know, Sims updates always break your mods, and this is the reason why most people don't really like updates at all. Long story short, I couldn't use any mods, so I didn't have T.O.O.L, I didn't have my delete protection, so I had to refurnish parts of the living room area afterwards, because for some reason, lowering or elevating a platform or even using different types of wallpapers deletes objects in this game. I don't know why, but it does. So if you want to get into building, I would really recommend getting Twisted Max's mods, at least T.O.O.L and BUILDBUY, because those are the most useful ones, and they are actually fixed now. So if you want to download them, I'm going to put them in the description below. So here I was looking through the doors section because I couldn't find a door that was fitting for this dungeon area here. We have basically two cells, which are here for whatever reason you can think of. I just wanted to make it spooky, and my story for the cells here is this used to be a vampire's residence, which is also the reason why we have the coffin room here, and basically this is food storage, vampire food storage, if you get what I'm saying. I'm not sure if these cells actually hold sims because the bars are debug objects. Editing look here, I playtested the bars and sims will walk right through them because they're debug. But it was kind of important to me that these cells can actually hold somebody for some reason. So I tried basically everything to block the way here. I used fences, I used different debug objects, but none of them worked. And the easiest solution was to place stacks of wooden planks there, and they actually block the way, so your sims will have to use the door, and you can simply lock the doors if you really want to lock somebody in the dungeon down here. So as I said before, I didn't have T.O.O.L mod for like half the build process because the update basically broke the mod. And as you can see here, the bars are basically sticking through the ceiling, which was kind of a problem upstairs. So I waited until the mod was functional again and then lowered all the bars into the ground, which you can't see in the video because I didn't record it. You can see that the mods are not working because the shopping cart icon is back up there. I don't really mind it since it stopped blinking, which it did in the beginning, which was really annoying for a lot of people, myself included. But I also don't mind it getting removed after installing the mods again because I'm more used to not having it there. So talk like this might also be one of the reasons why this channel is probably never getting sponsored by EA itself. But you have to address problems if they're there. At least that's my opinion. Anyway, as you guys can see, I also placed a portrait of a lady right above the coffin, which I also covered with one of the, let's say, rusted curtains from werewolves. And I was thinking maybe the vampire who used to live here was the woman's lover and she died, or maybe they even killed her themselves and then covered the portrait because they didn't want to look at her but couldn't get rid of the painting itself because they were too emotionally attached to it. But anyway, you can make up whatever story you want to, tell your own story. And I feel like this house has a lot of potential for different types of players. For example, the storytellers, of course, but also people who like to build, who like to renovate. And also for, I would say, the regular players who could use this as a community lot, maybe to explore. Also, guys, if you're planning on renovating this, please make sure to use the hashtag #DBReno in case that you upload this to the gallery, because I'm always curious what you guys do with my builds. This could be a concept for an upcoming video. We take a look at the ghosts and or inhabitants that you create, and we could also do renovated versions of this house or simply altered versions. Maybe somebody wants to make this even spookier. So for the upcoming weeks I will try to upload a bit more because I have several builds sitting in my gallery. You know, I have a lot of unfinished builds. Some of them have been sitting in my gallery for years, and I feel like I should start finishing some of these because some of these are, I would say, quite good, at least in my opinion. We'll see if you like them, but I feel like some of them have a lot of potential. Maybe I should do a video just covering all the unfinished builds that are like something and not nothing, so like 50% finished, and let you guys choose which one should get finished next. So that would be an option. Or we could simply do a poll like 4 builds a week and choose one which gets finished in the upcoming 2 weeks. I would say let's be realistic here. I'm a really slow builder, I'm a really slow editor, and I'm also quite lazy and have a lot to do right now. So all these factors are not really beneficial for the upload schedule, which is basically non-existent on this channel, but you guys know that. And I really appreciate that you guys are so patient and appreciate the few videos I upload every like a month, once a month, which I know is not much. I try to do better, but even making shorts takes up so much time because I have to build, I have to edit, I do have to do the voiceover. I also kind of feel the pressure to build good stuff all the time, which I of course always try to do, but I think I'm at a point where I hold myself to a rather high standard when it comes to builds. And this also kind of doesn't allow me to upload weekly because I always try to make my builds as good as they can be, at least as good as I'm able to do, of course. And I feel like it makes more sense to upload one really good build, or what I would consider good, rather than 3 mediocre builds. Anyway guys, we're almost at the end of the video. I wanted to say thank you if you made it to this point here. Please don't forget to leave a like and consider subscribing if you're new to the channel. As always, there's a showcase section at the end of the video. Also, by the time you guys see this video on YouTube, the build will be on the gallery, so you can download it right now if you want to. If you plan on renovating this house, please don't forget to use the hashtag #DBReno. If you're gonna re-upload this to the gallery, if you want me to see your renovated versions, I'm always curious what you do with my builds. If you're more into cast, I think it could be fun to create some really cool ghosts or occults, or maybe even some regular sims, and create a cool backstory for the characters. Also, if you want me to see them, use the hashtag #DBResidents for the gallery or upload them on any social platform and tag me there. Anyway, that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. This took me a really long time, so again, if you want to support the channel, the easiest way would be to leave a like and also to consider subscribing. If you want to see more content like this, you can of course leave a comment to tell me, but also for the algorithm, and I would really appreciate that. Anyway, that's it for today. See you guys next time.
Perfect.